soon. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on your screen right now. You're at the right channel. You're at the CRM conversation, and today is our 229th show. And we are very happy to have you with us and our two guests today. So, as you have experienced several shows where we had only the three of us together in the combination that either Marshall or Thomas or myself was missing, but we now arrange that we have 5 people on your screens. We have 2 experts, and we would like to learn and cover the topic of how magic in the CRM and CX can be done through the little help of a bit of magic by CPQ. CPQ is helping us in several opportunities together with artificial intelligence and without artificial intelligence. What we will have a decent talk about. And now the floor is the one of Thorsten, which I will shortly introduce a bit, and Robin, our two experts. They are from Karlsruhe, Germany. Thorsten is very much on the private side in sports. He loves ball games, and he is a fan in baseball of the Cubs, as I learned. And he has also an educational background at a technical university, and was then in what is now the KIT in Karlsruhe at that time, and had a professional background in several companies before he joined his now existing employer, where he from scratch started with the CPQ product and programmed it. So he knows what he is doing when he is selling. So here comes in Robin, who has been in technical education and studies as well, and was in several other companies. And we had the fun factor yesterday that we found out something special. And he is since 5 years with his recent employer, and Thorsten is with that employer for 13 years. And I would like to hand over now, starting with Thorsten, to add all the stuff what I unfortunately have missed to put into your introduction. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much, Ralf, and yes, hello from my side to everyone out there, and I'm really happy to be with you here in that stream. Yes, you nearly say almost everything to me. No, not at all. Yes, I'm as you said, I'm since 13 years at CIS, and I am working on CPQ systems. Yes, my passion is something about to help companies in their way for digitalization, and that's what is really my passion, to go into companies to see where they're actually stand in their way to digitalization, and where can we help with our solutions to make them better. And yes, that's what I do, and that's what I really love to do.
And over to Robin.
Yes, so hello everybody. I'm very happy to be here and to give you some insights on CPQ, and also of course on our product CAS Merlin CPQ. And for myself, I'm working for CAS in the product configuration area for about 5 years now. And I'm in the role of a sales consultant. and you might already hear it, sales consultant. It's kind of a special role because CPQ systems, they are expert systems, and that's why I'm not only a sales guy but also a consultant. And our prospects or clients, they need this consultancy to introduce a CPQ solution, and that's my daily business, to help them introduce our CPQ solution. And besides, there's another very important topic that I'm covering, which is the internationalization of our software, or the sales of our software. And since several years, we are now also bringing our product into the international markets, and therefore I'm responsible to build the markets, find partnerships, and so on. And yeah, that's pretty much the most important things about myself.
Cool. Thanks for that more a bit in detail on what you're doing and what the background of your education is and what you are loving to do when you walk your talk. I would like to start it off with the silly question of the day, such as, what the heck is a CPQ and what is it good for? What is the scope of a CPQ system? And I would love that Robin is starting right now, please.
Yes. So CPQ means configure, price, quote. And in fact, yes, and in fact, it's a tool for sales teams, and it comes into play when you have very complex products. So for example, if you just sell one product and every time the same product, then you might not need a CPQ. However, if you have, for example, machines where you have millions of different possibilities how you can sell this machine, or also how you can sell a truck which has many different possibilities, then of course you will find it a bit tricky to find the right variant for your customer. And there the CPQ comes in to help the sales team to configure the product. So find the best fitting solution for your customer, then make the pricing. And of course, pricing can be very complex, particularly if we talk about variant products. And then in the end, of course, you would like to get a quote and send this quote out to your customer. And that's pretty much the basic functionality. But of course, by today, a CPQ is much more. Just to give you 2 or 3 buzzwords here, of course, it has to cover an end-to-end process, and also it must be intelligent. So it should give you much more assistance on the way of the configuration process.
Torsten, what would you add to that nice introductory explanation? What the heck is a CPQ and what can I do with it? And I'm now in my sales role. I see my benefit immediately to a certain degree, but what's more beef inside?
Yes. So if we look back in our history, where we started perhaps in 1986, not everyone was talking about KI or artificial intelligence, but in my opinion, a product configurator or a CPQ is one of the first, or is an assistant for the sales guys, for the sales peoples, in a very smart way. So, and in look back to our own foundation history, perhaps most of the people out there, they are knowing the CIS software company for CRM solutions. But our genetic code or our founding history, that was the first product configurator for Daimler trucks. And before we started in 1986 for developing the product configurator for Daimler, all the salespeople, they had a really big handbook where they were sitting with their customers, and going through this handbook and looking for everything. And yes, they put something together that did not work. That the truck never could be built. And then there was a kind of ping pong game between the sales and the production department. So, and I think this is a clear picture that you are saving time.
Okay.
You are saving a lot of time with CPQ systems because you if you configure a product, you can be sure that your company can build that together on a technical way. And yes, and perhaps one really big figure. One of our customers that they produce thousands or 5,000 quotations per year, and if you only save half an hour time for each quotation process, you save in a year hundreds of person hours that you can use for better things. For being at your customer, talk with your customer, what he really needs. And in my opinion, that's the core of a CPQ system, to be faster, to don't make mistakes in your quotation process.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's basically that's it.
And what kind of effect does that have on customer experience?
The customer experience, what do you mean with customer experience for the whole, or can you explain what you concretely mean with customer experience?
I'm trying to get at what it is like being a customer, working with a salesperson, going through a product configurator or CPQ system, and how that affects the outcome of opinion.
I think the most important aspect is that the sales team gets much faster. So sales cycle times and also response times are much faster. So just to give you one example, let's call it innovation in our CPQ is that we have changed from a PDF quote, which was like the regular way how quotes were sent to the customer. You create a PDF, send it to the customer. And of course, this entire process takes time. Also, if you think not using CPQ, creating the entire quote, making the pricing, creating a quote document, it all takes time. And with a CPQ, and particularly if you use a digital quotation like we provided, you are much faster. So the customer has a request, he can provide it directly to the sales team on a digital platform, and the sales team can directly react and provide the answer within seconds, I would say. And that's, in my opinion, the biggest advantage in terms of customer experience. But of course, there are some other aspects. So for example, CPQ often provides the possibility that the customer also gets a configurator. So usually the customer configurator is kind of a lightweight version of the sales CPQ. So it has the goal that the customer can find some information about the products and get a feeling for what is possible with the products. And that's kind of a handy tool for the customer to make a first configuration. And then if he is more interested, he can then directly address the sales team and request an offer for his requirements. And that's some additional part which helps the customer, of course, to get the best product for his requirements.
Highly appreciate that perspective, as well as you mentioned the configurator, such as what we as private persons when we are looking for the next car or the next yacht, to mention your customer Bavaria Yachting, if I'm not mistaken, that those things are easier visualized. And I'm a very visual person. So if I just see a line with a text in it, it doesn't ring a bell or gets a trigger to me. But if I see the car I configure in a mock-up and I see it in the color I was choosing, and I can change it, and I have a 360-degree turnaround, so I see it from all the sides and from the interior. I believe that is really, really helpful, aside of the speeding up the process of the doing the faster and more precise quotation.
Yeah, I agree, particularly for emotional products. There,
yeah, genau.
This gets very interesting. For example, for those yachts or cars, there you want to see what you get. So you make a configuration and you can already see it as a 3D example. And then it gets very interesting for the customer to try out some possibilities. For example, what does my car look like if I change colors, if I add some additional options? Then it gets really interesting.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps in addition, what we noticed in the last years, 5 to 10 years, perhaps, because perhaps of the behavior of our own in the, if we want to buy a washing machine or something like that, that's my opinion. I don't go to MediaMarkt or Saturn or Walmart and ask what do you have? What do I need? What is the best product? I'm searching for my own in the internet, on platforms, on and so on. And this behavior we noticed in the B2B market too. Many of the interested companies, they don't want in the first steps to get in touch with the manufacturer companies, with the sales guys. They want looking for their own, for the solutions of the companies. Are they fitting to my requirements? And if you don't provide that to the market, I really believe that you will not have a really good future, because you nearly even not notice that you are not on the short list or long lists from the companies.
It's an often repeated statistic that the typical customer will have done 60% of the sales journey before they even contact a vendor.
Yeah. That's right.
How does a CPQ help there? I mean, I do my research, and good is I'm probably not, especially if the product I'm after or the solution I'm after is complicated enough to warrant a manufacturer to order or even an engineer to order process, that I can deal with any CPQ system to accomplish that.
I believe, as Robin already said, with an end customer configurator, you can make a kind of profiling, and to make it easy for the interested company to see what fits to my requirements. For example, if you have some what's the word for pumps?
Pumps.
Mm-hmm.
Pumps. I, as a company owner or a guy who needs such a pump, I don't know if I see a pump with all the technical specifications, I cannot handle that. But what I can handle is that I know the kind of medium I want to transport through the pump. I know what pressure or the highest pressure I can I want to have at that pump, and I can, in the profiling, I can put in every of such requirements, and then the CPQ system can lead you to the right solution or as a bundle of solutions, perhaps that fits to these requirements. And that makes it really easy for the guy in front of the screen to see, oh, that company that really fits to my requirements, and I can go to other companies and can have a look. But then this company, if I get in touch with them, they can help me. And I think that's really a changing process.
Where do you see the limits for that? Let me give you 2 examples. So the companies I worked with before. So that one is it's a division of a German DAX company starting with S, not SAP. They are doing electrical motors, and for example, for submarines. So I'm quite sure that these thingies, as they are totally bespoke, are far beyond anything that I would expose as a configurator. The other company, it's more an American one with the German branch. They are doing sealing solutions, and sealing not in the sense of an O-ring, but refinery strength sealings. Yeah, so the big refineries are basically their customers. Yeah? So, and that again is probably far more complicated than you want to expose even in a simplified solution to your customers or to your prospects. So where do you see the upper and lower limits for offering this kind of solution?
Robin, do you want or?
Yeah. So also what I mentioned before, I believe for emotional products, it's very helpful. So whenever the customer buys something, and the customer in this case is most often a consumer, for example, buying a car or the yacht that we already spoke of. I think that's very helpful. And then talking about, for example, you mentioned electric engines. Sometimes it's just a kind of a product finder, but a very smart one. So the customer keys in some things that he believes that he needs from this engine, and then kind of a guided selling process takes over and leads to the right engine. So also here, it can be very helpful. Or another possibility, the customer has several use cases that he defines. So for what reason he needs an engine, and then the system provides several products that could fit. So for example, for this use case, he needs an engine, sensors, and so on. So if you make a system configuration to give him a first overview, what would be required to cover a certain use case? Also, this could be possible. But of course, I agree, if you have very complex products, so let's assume that you are in plant engineering and you want to configure a very huge plant, then of course you can just make the profiling, and then you very soon have to take over by a sales guy going into discussion with the customer, because you have to discuss a lot the details. So in this case, end customer configurator is rather to have a first touch point. In fact, it's about controlling a touch point, giving the customer a first nice tool. It's rather something which you want to play with, because it's very easy and nice to use, and you want to attract the customer that he gets in contact with the sales team. And in fact, that's the key of the end customer configurator. And how deep you can make the configuration, in fact, depends on the product. For a plan where you have to discuss everything in detail, of course, then you will only cover some basic parameters and then maybe show some nice visualizations how a plan could look like. But you will very soon say, okay, now you can get in contact with the sales team. And I think this depth, how deep we want to make the configuration, this is dependent of the product then.
Going to the... Yeah, sorry.
again, so where do you see an emotional product is fine. So my stereo is an emotional product as well. Or this one. Is the ability to, well, where do you see the lower limit? So from what point in time does it make sense to offer separate SKUs that are just a given versus making it a configurable product on the low end and conversely on the high end? So well we can the examples that are both brought were well in the area of heck that needs engineer to order. Yes, I have an internal configurator for that, but I really can't expose this to any type of public or interested customer. So in your experience, where do you see the lower and the upper limits? When do you recommend a client to not implement a CPQ? Just say, hey, sorry, doesn't really help you.
That's a really good question. Perhaps the upper limit, I think if you engineer big plans and you sell, I don't know, 3 to 5 plans a year and make your money with that, and everything is engineered individual for your customer. I think it's not a good way to implement a sales CPQ for, as I said in the beginning, for saving time in each process, because you only have perhaps 5 to 10 processes, and if you a year in these cases, and I believe that's not enough to save a little time 5 times a year. But on the other hand, if I producing thousands of quotes a year, and then I save only a few minutes per process, then it's really good. And that's one kind of higher or limits for CPQs. And on the other hand, the product itself. You showed just a mobile phone. I think that's not. There are not many variants in it. You can choose not many things.
Memory, size.
Yes, but the product has to be a little bit more variance in it and more complex, so that in mobile phone I can I even don't want to say the word configure. I can put together it by my own.
That's why I chose it. So where do you see the lower limit? From when on does it make sense? A laptop might be different already.
Yeah.
Or not.
That was
or not, I don't know.
Which came to my mind. Yeah. Configuring, for instance, a gamer's PC or a laptop could be useful, or going into public sector, such as if you see a lot of paperwork they are doing in governmental areas, where it's not that they produce anything aside of sitting on their asses and doing their time, but then making the paperwork a bit more smarter. Or for instance, a realistic thing, I was just by the private chat comment from Thomas thinking about, would a CPQ, if we would not drive it into the sales area, but in the jurisdictional area, could a lawyer or the guys who are doing all that paperwork, notare, if you buy a house or something like this, would they have a profit from that? Have you been asked for these from these people or users that you could help them in their cases? Has anything happened like that?
Yeah, and actually not by lawyers, but we do have some customers who use the CPQ in totally different, let's call them industries. So for example, there's one of our customer who configures contracts. So we are not talking now about machines, about physical stuff, but about a contract which is for energy supply. And so in this case, what they do is, or what they say is, they have very huge paragraphs, and of course there are many dependencies between those paragraphs. So depending on, for example, where's the customer located, what kind of energy they want to have, what amount at what time, and so on. Not only the supply of energy changes, but also, of course, all the paragraphs which are dependent on those requirements of the customer. And so in this case, they use the configurator to get the right contract in the end. And that's one example, but another example is some of our customers are in the software industry, like ourselves. And we also use the CPQ for configuring licenses, services, project management, hosting. So also not physical goods, but we use it for those intangible goods and to make quotes there. And of course, also for software, you have some kind of dependencies. Depending on how much licenses you sell, you might need other hosting possibilities. So also in this case, a CPQ is very handy.
Was wondering,
and of course, in the combination of that all, the combination of that all. Also, if you are selling machineries and something like that, you have also services you want to buy as an add-on, like maintenance services, financial services, like how do you want to buy that machinery, or like an you want to borrow that, or you want to borrow the money for that. And so financial services are coming more and more into play with CPQ systems in combination with the other products.
With the contracts, I had you mentioned financials, and I was jumping in my mind already to insurances. When I see these complex contracts, I get nervous, such as what do I have to sign in these 70 pages of paper, what I honestly do not understand, and what have they put into that contract complexity.
And that was one of my first projects at CAS, and one of this customer, that was in the power industry, energy industry, and they had these contracts. We all know from the insurance, it's a maximum contract. You have everything in one contract, and you have to look by your own. Oh, this is a little one. Where's the little one described, and so on. And they configured the first contract by them in the B2B market for energy, for selling energy, where the customer only gets the paragraphs he needs, and not everything. It's like the handbook from Daimler Trucks. There was everything in that handbook, and now, yes, they have only that what the customer needs.
No description of the gear shift if you got an automatic, yeah.
And actually, that's a very good point, Thomas, that you just made, because actually we have a demographic change nowadays. And our customers, what they say is that in former times, in many industries, they had very experienced people. So, for example, maybe before they were technical guys, mechanics, and so on. So they know very well how the machines, how the, for example, also trucks work. But nowadays, we have a lot of, for example, sales guys with this huge experience going into pension, and new people coming in. And for those new people, it's very hard, of course, to understand this huge amount of possibilities, of options that they can offer.
Right.
And therefore, they say they need a very strong CPQ, which also supports the user in the configuration process and gives a lot of information about the product, showing some videos, images, explaining the product to the sales team, because then also a new sales guy can very quickly go alone and make the first configuration just with the help of the CPQ. And that's also what we call guided selling. And therefore, we also use AI assistants, which support the user within this configuration process, so that even the newest employees or sales guys are also enabled to make configurations.
That sort of leads me to thieving questions here again. Leads to recommendation engines or price optimization. So in how far is it a job of a CPQ system to recommend an up or on cross-sell? If a customer wants XYZ, so I want a bike, a gravel bike. So, and now one of the questions is for what purposes? So for example, to get to work once in a while or regularly. Means the gravel bike, probably as a recommendation, could get a lighting system, which a sports bike typically does not have, or a carrier for my bags. So in how far is that a scenario for a CPQ system?
Yep. So we believe that today CPQ systems must be able to give recommendations and give some smart hints to the salespersons. So, for example, if somebody is configuring a gravel bike, the CPQ should tell him that if this person, assuming that we know that the person goes by night to work, then we should recommend that he should use the best lighting system that we have, just to give you an example on the gravel bike. But also to provide some cross-selling possibilities. So the CPQ should also tell the salesperson that there might be some very good financing for the bike, or that the customer might want to lease the bike and show some leasing rates. So all those possibilities should be within the CPQ to give the salesperson the full transparency what the customer might need for his certain use case.
Also what you can provide them, but also from historical data to recommend what other people with the same context or with the same needs has chosen in the past. And to go on, the recommendation is only one part. I believe that an optimization will play a big role in the future. The bicycle example is a really small example, but it's a good example. But the most products in CPQ systems are a little bit more complex. So, but what the customer really knows is, for example, my bike, the weight of my bike. It has to be very
lightweight.
I need the word leicht.
Lightweight.
Yeah, lightweight.
Lightweight, or it doesn't really matter for me because I'm living in the Netherlands and everything. I don't have mountains or something like that, or it. These are some kinds of that I really know as a customer, and I can don't give you a concrete value, but I can decide on a range from 0-10 to +10, or it's very important for me, or doesn't matter, or it's really not important for me. And on this way, you can ask your customer questions, and the product configurator and the algorithms, they can optimize then the whole configuration based on these multiple requirements or multiple criteria. And that's really in the future a big part, I think, because it makes it easier for everyone to fill out all these complex formulas in the configurator.
Well, the CPQ doesn't exist in isolation. There are other systems in the business as well. How does CPQ integrate with existing CRM and ERP systems, for example?
Yes, of course. In the most case, we are integrated in, first of all, in CRM systems. because the sales is working in the CRM system for in opportunities, and then some part in the opportunity process. Then if you want to create the quotation, then the product configurator comes into play, and that's the base process. I think you work in an opportunity, you type in, or you get your lead, you're qualifying your lead, you know where your customer is, and then you want to create that quotation, and you can use everything you know about your customer directly in the CPQ process. Now, perhaps you know which country he is, and you can use all these information in your quotation process. For example, the voltage is different in different countries,
Right.
so I don't have to type it in my configuration, because I know it before. I know the country where it comes from. So this is a base integration, I think, in CRM systems. And afterwards, when I'm ready with my configuration and the customer says, yes, I want to buy it, we have to create orders in ERP systems. And then the process is going on in the ERP systems. That's basically the most integration from CRM, CPQ back to CRM, and then into the ERP systems.
How does this connection work? Because I can imagine that the complexity that is shown to the end user, be that a salesperson or me as an end customer, the complexity shown is vastly different from what actually is needed at the back end. I'm talking bills of materials here. So, well, the bike shall get a wheel. The wheel consists of a bunch of spokes and a rim and, well, a brake, that this disc brake that is meanwhile attached to it, and, well, the tire plus a valve plus a lot of other things which are all not specified. In how far does that translate to each other? Stunned silence.
Yeah.
Silence.
So, of course, in the back end, there's a lot of things happening, a lot of magic happening, because, as you've said, the user in the end, he just sees the configuration options. But of course, in the back end, there's a lot of things going on. So the entire dependencies are defined by rules. And actually, I think that's also a very important point, that it must be very easy. So for the person creating those rules, it must be very easy to create those dependencies. And therefore, for example, use just some drag and drop graphical modeling to define, for example, whether an engine can be used with a brake system. And that's the one thing. And of course, on the other hand side, Thorsten already said it, there are several interfaces. And in fact, usually a CPQ pulls data and passes back data from and to many systems. So there is an ERP, CRM, but there are maybe also many other systems involved, like a CAD, a PIM, PLM. So there can be many systems involved, because in fact, almost every customer wants to have as less manual work to be done as possible. So that's why mostly we follow the single source of truth principle. So if there's data in the ERP, we do not want to also maintain it in the CPQ manually, but of course there must be some automated interface to pull the data automatically, so that all data is just stored in one system, and that we have this single source of truth.
I just wanted to take a little side step, a little road, a narrow one, where I'm driven by curiosity, such as in the way of emergency services. And I was, in my younger years, the so-called German Red Cross water guard, a educated lifeguard. I was at a small lake and getting people out of the water if they forgot to swim. Yeah. Now, I am aware that you did some stuff with German Red Cross or one of these emergency services. Can you elaborate a bit on that one? Because this was for me somehow special.
Yeah, that's
Connect.
really a little bit special. And the project started because one of our employees, he's working in his after work for the Red Cross. I think you say also in English.
Yeah.
And what they are doing is they configure their paramedic services.
Okay.
So, for example, if there is a big music event with a boy group, there's a specific algorithm for these services, for these paramedics services, where you can say which kind of event do you have, how many people do you expect will come, and then this algorithm is calculating how many guys or how many paramedic guys you need for this event. And the big advantage is that they are now faster than the competitors. Most of the events are organized by cities or by something like that, and they ask every companies like Red Cross or Malteser or other companies for the services. So, and they are now a little bit faster because they can type in all these parameters in the configurator. The algorithm is calculating in the background because it's implemented in this configurator, and they can print out the quotation directly in front of the city or who ask for that service. And that's a big advantage for them. But it's really started because one of our employees wants to have it for these services.
But that is always the driver, that you have a requirement to get creative, and this is very useful. I recall that one of my bosses in the Red Cross in Cologne was always fighting with these requirements. If the Cologne Opera was requiring, if they have a big event, 10 paramedics, where to get them from which of the different quarters, and get them at the city. What kind of ambulance equipment must be stationed around the opera in 1 minute's distance, and if there is an emergency doctor at hand within the next 3 minutes time span, something like that. I find this quite interesting. Cool.
And a funny remark, I said something about the boy group event, and that's really a parameter in this algorithm, because if you have a boy group event, you need more of paramedic guys than in a normal music event.
Like a Taylor Swift event or what?
Girls are screaming, and that's realistic. It's really a part of that algorithm.
And weather conditions, such as fainting participants, guests of the event, due to heat and due to amount of people and less air to breathe. Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the nearly all contract they have you need in your business, for example, like NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, for example. They are not really big, but every company is needed such contracts, and all of these contracts, they have a variance, like how long do they run the contracts, something like that. And there are some parameters each company is defining for their own. So it's not a quite complex contract, but you can individualize it in your company with your parameters. So that's a little bit perhaps in the future another kind of configurator where some lawyer companies will generate the paragraph, the real text, and perhaps we as or the lawyer can define the dependencies, but the company who wants to use this configurator, they can define their variants, how long is a contract running, or and something like that. So that's another kind of configurator that is in the future really I believe in it. Yeah.
While we're talking, go.
Marshall, I already said enough.
Well, we could argue about that. Since we're talking about the future, how about artificial intelligence? How has that impacted your product and CPQ industry in general?
So do you want Robin to start and I?
Yep.
Oh.
So we believe that it will have a very huge impact because, as we said before, we believe that assistance is required. And in fact, it's also that today, as a consumer, for example, we are used to have some intelligent assistants all around. Whether we are on our mobile phone, there you have some smart assistants. If you are in the car, you have some smart assistants. And so why shouldn't there be any smart assistants in the CPQ? Because in fact, making a configuration is very complex, we know that. And particularly, to give you an example, in some industries, the environment conditions get much more complex. For example, in the truck sector, we can see that nowadays they have to cope with carbon emissions. And of course, that's now another parameter that the sales team has to look at. And so what would be nice? Have a smart assistant which helps you to find out what kind of carbon emissions are still fine for your customer. And therefore, because the environment of a salesperson gets more complex, we believe that there's also an urgency for those intelligent assistants. And we have already said some words about, for example, recommendations, about optimizations which are provided by the assistant. But of course, there are much more possible in the future. So, for example, what we believe will also be a very important aspect is that in the future, we want to, for example, give in an email from a customer with some requirements, and the configurator automatically provides a fitting configuration. So somehow it's text to configuration that the assistant help us to do this, or that I can just by speech mention what my customer has said to me before in a meeting, and then the system directly provides me a fitting configuration. So there are many possibilities where AI could help the sales guy to become even more efficient, because as we said at the very beginning, a CPQ system is all about gaining more time for the sales guy to have more time for the customer and for selling.
Yes, and I believe that there will be AI assistance in the whole customer journey in the CPQ process, like in the awareness, consideration, acquisition, and in the retention. Like Robin said, the text to configuration in the beginning of the process, if you get an email or something like that, but then in also a recommendation only in the consideration phase, perhaps, and then something like similar quote finders. So the sales guy started the configuration and automatically get results from similar quotes or something like that to make it easier to get the right configuration. Optimization assistance, or then of course generative AI, like generate texts for your customer and translate the text for for your customers. All this, I think it's all already in play. Yes, but there will come more and more.
How about price optimization? I mean, we've got companies like Pros that are quite big in the airline industry that do nothing but helping them getting the best possible price, given price sensitivity of customers also. Is that something that goes into the CPQ process as well? I mean, airplane tickets are quite simple thing. They're not really configured, but you already said optimization. Does that include price optimization?
Yes,
Should it include? Will it include?
Yes, pricing. It's already of course, but pricing is a really big area in the CPQ process, because every customer has a different pricing concept or pricing concept. In the beginning of my work, I thought it's really easy. You have a basket, you have positions in your basket, you have a price, you give a discount, and that's it. Personal or all discount, but surprise, it isn't. And I think, and because it's so much complex in each company, I think, and it's already in play, that we want to give services for the sales guy to get the optimized price, and to have, for example, benchmarks. If I'm typing in some discounts, I want to see, or my company wants me to see, is it a so-called good discount in relationship to the other sales guys in the market, or is it a bad price? So companies want to I don't know, to steer, to steuern, to steer the sales guys not to give too much discount, but the optimal discount, and that's already in the CPQ systems to get nearly to the optimal price. But I believe that that's not all. In the future, there have to come more, because it's so complex in each company, and I really ask myself, why is it so complex in some kinds? But it's an historical way where over years it become more complex and more complex, and that's difficult for the sales guys in the market. I think it should be more easy.
So speed is not only for the benefit of the salespeople, but also for the experience of the potential customer, that they get it after properly listening, that they get faster a quote and can more easily order with a good gut feeling that they have a very cool and fair price. Huh?
Yeah.
No,
Do you know something, Robin, about our in the last customer days? We had a professor with a price engine for something like he has an algorithm to get the best price, I think. Do you know something about that?
Yeah. So in fact, it's another system of a company which we are collaborating with, and they are checking the prices that were or the cost that were given in the past, and based on the cost of materials, they are calculating what will be in the future, and therefore they make a cost assumption and provide a price which will fit to the hopefully correct future market conditions. And based on this, you as a salesperson get a recommendation for the sales price. So there are many things, also solutions out there in the market, which work with kind of price sensing. Yes, right. And to give recommendations to the sales team about the best price for a certain customer. And of course, for us in the CPQ sector, What is already available is optimizing, for example, for margin. So if you have all those variants, of course, there are some options which have a very huge margin. So you could say to the optimizer, I want to have a solution which has a very short delivery time, which has a high margin, and maybe also some technical parameters like the product. Let's assume, it's a machine, a truck, a yacht, a car, whatever, shall have a very low energy consumption and a very low weight of the machine or truck or whatever. And then I can run the optimization and receive a fitting product which fulfills all these criteria.
Very good.
Do I have 1 more minute or?
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
And it's not the price, but what it just coming into my mind, and what we are also playing with is what's a really cool assistant already and in the future is when a sales guy, he configure a product and you have a price, and yes, the customer wants to buy it, and he can show the same product. For example, a truck. I have a nearly equal truck in the stock. It's standing outside, and you can just get in and drive with it, and you have it. It's nearly equal, and you have it right now, and it's a little bit cheaper than a new one. So, and that's a really good assistant for the customer and for the sales guy too, because his stock is getting smaller and smaller. You want to buy these trucks on the stock, and the customer is happy because he don't have to wait on the truck, and it's nearly equal. And these to find similar stock products is a really cool assistant for a CPQ system.
Yeah.
Marshall.
Okay. I think that has already covered our famous last word section. Very well said. So we are at the top of the hour, and it's time to go. Robin, Torsten, thank you both very much for joining us today. It was interesting to get a look at what sort of thinking process there is in the people at CAS Merlin. Thank you also to our audience for listening in. If you'd like to watch this broadcast again or see any of our other episodes, ask the dog, and the dog will tell you to go to YouTube and look at CRM Convos with a K. Hopefully we'll see you there. Tune in next week when we dive into progress in CRM and CX. What has developed, where is there room for improvement, and how to apply JTBD with our guest, Mike Boyson. Hopefully you will join us for that. But in the meantime, we've been CRM Convos. Have a great day and a great week.
And stay safe. Bye. And